Touch. Now, this Saturday we'll see London's Pride Parade take centre stage with thousands of the LGBT community and allies descending on the capital. But some people are unhappy that away from the rainbow flags and sequins, the event is being hijacked by business. Even Downing Street has been keen to get in on the action. The normally sombre-looking front door has been given a multicoloured floral flourish in recognition of a Pride reception. So has Pride become too corporate? Well, we can talk now to Peter Tatchell, who has been campaigning for LGBT rights for years. Also with us, Harry Gay from LGBT Homeless Shelter, the Outside Project, Ramal O'Dwyer-Affleck from Pride in London, which is organising Saturday's event, and Emma Meehan from the LGBT Foundation, which gets funding from corporate sponsors. Thank you all for joining us. Lots of rainbow, lots of colour here. So, Peter, I mean, this has come a really long way, hasn't it, from the first official Pride in London in 1972 that I think was attended by 2,000 people. So a lot to celebrate, but you've got concerns too around it.
Well, I think there's a general consensus in the LGBT plus community that Pride probably does need some form of corporate sponsorship to pay for it. But I think there's some concern that it's getting a bit out of control and that the event has become too commercialised. So, for example, the big corporates are the only ones who can afford extravagant, expensive floats, and so they tend to dominate the parade, and the community groups are somewhat overshadowed. I think there's also a concern that while undoubtedly some businesses definitely do great work supporting their LGBT plus staff and customers, others perhaps also see this as a marketing opportunity. So for them, it's in part all about PR and branding for their particular product. And that, again, is really against the principle of Pride.
And when you say PR and branding, do you suspect rainbow washing at all in some of this, that the message doesn't necessarily align with behaviour?
Well, give you an example. Some while back, Marks and Spencer's introduced a special rainbow LGBT sandwich. And true,
what was in that?
True, they decided to give a certain amount of money to a very good LGBT plus charity, but the amount was really derisory. If they were sincere about their commitment, they would have promised to give all the profits from those sandwiches to the charity.
It's better than nothing, though, isn't it?
Well, it is better than nothing, but I think, when companies support Pride, they really need to back it up, and a lot of it feels quite tokenistic. And I think, this is an issue which a lot of people in our community are increasingly feeling concerned about.
Harry, Peter was saying there about the floats and the big corporate ones sponsoring the majority of the floats. Is there room for everyone, though, in it?
There isn't room for everyone, and I guess there is also the financial aspect. So I work for a grassroots homeless organisation. We spend the rest of the year running a homeless shelter for the LGBTIQ plus community and a community centre that's in central London. And when it comes to Pride last year, we always look to the guests and see what they want to do. They're the centre of everything we do. And for them, marching in Pride, being visible, is important. So we spent £500 on the float, because we used to run the shelter out of a tour bus. So we wanted to take that on the parade and have it as a centre so people could hear about the service that we're running. And then we just got really confusing things back from Pride in London, saying that we should make it colourful, make it look appealing, have the guests in matching outfits, just to sort of brand it up and make it sort of visibly nice. But the reality of it is a homeless shelter, and also the reality is we don't have enough money to spray paint the bus in a rainbow.
Ramal, what do you say about that? I mean, obviously you're from Pride in London. Does it sounds like style over substance there.
I mean, I think it's really important that we recognise that in order for us to move forward globally, not just as a country, that private companies need to play more than a passive role in moving things forward.
But before we talk about the other corporate brands, just that the message to Harry's charity and what they were doing, is obviously it's a charity that does really good work. They were spending limited money on the float, wanted to be part of it, and the message came back, it's maybe not quite bright and buzzy enough.
I mean, I can't comment on the specifics. I'm not involved. I don't get involved specifically on all the operational side of things. But what I would say is that everyone is welcome in the sense that there are people walking without floats, for example. We don't dictate to people what they have on their their floats. Obviously, we have a code of conduct where we expect people to obviously stay within that. We don't want obviously people to be derogative to other elements of the community, etc. But we wouldn't prevent someone, from my understanding, I don't know of us preventing somebody because it wasn't bright enough. And so, you know, I would reach out to you and say, hopefully, that there are people who have left the parade for whatever reason in past years and come back. And I would hope that at some point you would feel comfortable to come back, because I think that it's really important that we have all elements of our community part of this. And, you know, we talk about corporates and their roles. Yes, there are some large corporates involved, but actually more than 60% of the people involved are actually non-profits, unions or small businesses, or just individuals who actually want to come out and make a statement.
Let's bring in, I want to bring in Emma at this point because we've not heard from her yet. No, so the LGBT Foundation, Emma, that you're from, gets funding from corporate sponsors. How do you see the issue of corporate sponsorship and pride and the commercialisation of it?
I mean, I think, as Peter said, it's about the investment that brands are making and whether that's backed up by other meaningful action. So at LGBT Foundation, we have relationships with a number of corporates. So Smirnoff, for example, have allowed us to expand our community safety programme into Soho, to put volunteers out on the streets of Soho to make sure that LGBT people are having a safer night out. Now, I think if brands can demonstrate it's not simply about sticking a rainbow flag on something for the months of June and July, and that actually there's a genuine desire to invest in social change to make the country a better place for LGBT people, then we should welcome brands wanting to become part of that wider network of allies.
And how would they do that, Peter? You mentioned the sandwich and the proportion of the profits being too small. What would you like to say?
One of the issues is, of course, that the city authorities impose an artificial limit of 30,000 people in the parade. So last year, 50,000 people wanted to march and 20,000 were turned away. That's completely against the spirit of pride. In the 1990s, over 100,000 people marched. But nowadays, the city authorities have imposed these draconian limits. Plus, they slap pride with huge charges. So Westminster City Council demands money for road closures, barriers, suspension of parking bays.
So it's victim of its own success. Is that what
well, no, I mean, Westminster City Council does not impose those financial charges on the anti-Brexit march or the march to defend the NHS. Pride is being singled out. And that is why Pride is being forced, to some extent, to go to the corporates, because the city authorities are punishing them financially, and I would say exploiting them financially. And I think Westminster City Council really has a serious question to answer. They brand themselves as LGBT friendly, yet they are crushing Pride financially.
I think it's important to note, though, that the other role that I think corporates play in Pride is actually, in order for us to make this as an accessible event for as many people as possible and provide a platform for as many people as possible. For example, things like providing bottles for all of our thousands of volunteers who are going to be out there in the heat. They need something, and actually
that's controversial. Are they plastic?
They're not plastic.
Okay.
And the thing is, it's to avoid exactly that, so people don't bring those single-use plastic bottles. But also things like our family area. Not everyone wants to be in amongst the crowd, so we need to provide a family area that's a little bit more quiet and safe for some of those families. We need to be able to provide a viewing platform for those who have access needs and might want to go and watch Billy Porter on the main stage and can't be in amongst the crowds. And all of those things cost a significant amount of money. And yes, we do have to provide pay some costs to ensure that the event is as safe as possible. But it also helps us go that extra mile to provide a platform for different elements of our community.
But you were in New York just with me.
Yes.
And we went to the Reclaim Pride March. There were no corporates, no police. Everything was self-organised. It was a joyous, fabulous parade in the true spirit of Stonewall 1969. I don't think all these add-ons are necessary.
But I think that there's an argument there, isn't there? And I think the reality is, for example, we've got a world area which is about promoting BME, LGBT people in the community, and in order to do that, it costs money.
Would you do a Reclaim Pride here next year then?
I'd love to, but I'd love Pride to be slightly reorganised, and I want to pay tribute to the volunteers. Pride has got these hundreds of volunteers who do a fantastic job.
Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you, and let us know your thoughts on that.